Well, I'm here today to show you some of the tools and tips about using bulk density sampling. So in front of me, I've got a variety of tools. Some of these are things I've felt have been useful through experience, and some of them are definitely essentials that you'll need to take a bulk density core. So the first thing is probably your equipment itself to get a soil sample of a known volume. So the tool I'll be demonstrating is a slide hammer sampler. It's not the only way to get a bulk density sample, but it's one that works really well, especially when you've got a number to take, and it's portable in the sense that you can carry it. That comes along with something like this. It's a cup corer device, and it has, this particular model has threads, and then there's an inside sleeve. This is a 3" by 6" sampler, and this threads on like that. So we'll go through that in more detail in the subsequent videos. I also have a 2" by 6" corer and a 3" by 3" corer, or 2" by 3" corer. Sorry, it's narrow. So that's the contrast. And then the additional sleeves. Some of them are metal, some of them are plastic or acrylic that work. You can stack them inside, or you can get shorter samplers. They also come in brass, and you can get them in aluminum. Aluminum, be careful, because as you're using it, you can actually deform that cylinder and it becomes really hard to work with, so I would avoid aluminum. But a brass or stainless steel or even the acrylic plastic can work really well. So that's the corer unit. The other tool that you will need, probably that will be helpful to pull that out of the soil, is something like a tile spade. I also have a couple more rugged models over here. These are marketed as like a root killer, a root spade. Something that's narrow and pointed. You don't want a big blunt shovel, but you want something that's small enough that in the field you can go like this and move some soil and then pull this out more easily. And again, that'll become more clear as we go through the demonstration. Here's another one that's even bigger. It's probably overkill for what I'm showing today. And then your trusty regular garden shovel can also come in handy, especially if you're doing anything at depth. The next sets of things to go through are tools that you need to clean the soil out of the cylinder. So the things I like to use include like a paint scraper or a spatula. I've also used skewers, painting mix sticks, really anything that's going to get you that, go inside the sampler that you're using, the cylinder you're using. And then you'll need tools to clean that out between samples, and so these are some of my favorites. They have not been used for their intended use. They're used for field work only. So I wanted to clarify that. But they work really well, especially you want to match your brush size with the core that you're using. And small brushes like a toothbrush are really great for cleaning out. You want to clean out the threads between samples, and then also this interior ridge in here. And that's not something that people talk about, but if this builds up inside, it'll just make it harder and harder to get your sample unstuck. Other tools are a point of reference for measuring depth. I have today a measuring tape in inches, so subpar, you would prefer something that has centimeters and inches, but again, really the rule you're looking for here is consistency. So know which depth you're sampling from and be consistent in how you do that for that day. So for me, I'll show how to use a tape measure to set up and know what depth you're sampling. You will also need something for your samples. So a big core like this, you're probably going to need a big bag. So I've got gallon Ziploc bags. I've got Sharpie markers. Don't use paper bags. My experience with paper bags is that the soils will inherently have moisture in them, and you put them in a cooler and they sit cool, and then you pick up the sample and it'll bust out the bottom because the paper took in the moisture. So plastic that you can close up. And I also have quart bags that will work for the smaller samples. Here is a sample when it's in. So you can see you do need a considerable bag size, especially for a larger soil sample. What else do I have with me? I have a bucket. So buckets you're probably familiar with for taking composites. The goal here is to take enough cores that, again, you have one representative sample, and by the time you take one sample for bulk density, you don't really need to take another set of composites for soil carbon concentration. You can. So I'm holding up my water bottle, but so the bucket is handy for that, and also for tooling around your equipment and putting your samples in it. So I have actually lots of buckets with me because I love my buckets, and I've got a bin here, as you can see, and water. And somewhere on me I have hearing protection, especially if you're doing anything relatively close to your chest and head. You want to make sure that you're protecting yourself. So maybe gosses if you're working in a rocky situation, or lots of like in a prairie where there's sticks and things that can get in your face. So glasses are a good idea. Hearing protection, water, sunscreen, gloves. Those are all the things that I would have with me. Other tools that you might not think about are some way to mark your equipment so that you know what point of reference you're sampling to. And again, I'll show that. So I've got painter's tape, but masking tape, even a Sharpie marker or Scotch tape, or like string or something that you can wind around your tools to give you some point of reference is really helpful when you're going from spot to spot to spot, and you want to make it simple to do it consistently and not have to think about it too hard every time you move to a new location. So marking your equipment is a really good idea. What am I missing? Okay, so this particular model comes with something, it's a linch pin here that holds the threaded unit onto the stem. And what am I missing? Did I miss anything? Field notes. So I don't have a tablet or a computer with me, but you're certainly welcome to use that. For my notes today, I'll be using a notebook and a pen or a pencil. Old school, but trusty. I know it won't fail from battery operation or weather or you name it. So I've got my sampling list inside. I've got my notes about where to sample. Those are all things that you would have. Those are all things that you should have with you, or at least be thinking about when you prepare for going out in the field. But how you're going to keep those notes, and so that you can get back to where you are, and so you can describe where you are for future use, and you can describe where you are for someone else to go back to that same site in case you're not the one sampling there. And even if you are, you're not going to remember, right? So keep notes, take good notes. And I believe, oh, I didn't talk about these yet. So if you're sampling at the surface, that's pretty straightforward. If you're sampling at depth, there's a tool that has, this is an auger tool with a special planer bit on the bottom. And the way it works is it just shovels out a light layer so that you're essentially creating a smooth hole at the bottom of that hole, so that when you go back with your sampler, your soil has a nice point of reference of being flat at the then would be top. Bottom of the hole becomes the top of the next sample. So a planer tool is useful for that. And I believe I've covered it all. Oh, clippers. If you're working in a place with vegetation, you'll need to remove the vegetation from the soil surface first. This is it's overkill for grass, but something like this, or the site you're going to be at, again, be thinking ahead about, do I need to cut corn stover away, or do I need to prune grasses or clear residue from the site? So those are things you need to think through and have that equipment with you so that you end up with a nice bare soil surface to work from for taking your bulk density core. And that, I believe, wraps it up.